Affiong gerade gesagt hat, I think it's time to move forward. Wir gehen jetzt in den Block, der überschrieben ist, die Herausforderungen Afrika zu überdenken und die Perspektiven, es neu zu gestalten. Innovative Ideen, neue Perspektiven. Sie wird uns dazu jetzt referieren. Alle diejenigen, die jetzt noch auf den Vortrag von Aminata Traoré warten, die muss ich leider enttäuschen, sie ist nicht hier. Und deswegen gehen wir in den nächsten Punkt über und die Frau, die jetzt sprechen wird, ist Rechtsanwältin, Journalistin, Wissenschaftlerin. Sie hat mir gerade gesagt, sie dreht derzeit einen Film über Kwame Nkrumah, also bitteschön. Die nächsten Arbeiten sind in progress. Yeah. I just welcome you here. And please, take that step forward for us now. Welcome, Affiong, Affiong.
Greetings, everybody. Greetings. I hope I don't speak too fast. My name is Affiong from Moyo wa Taifa. It's a Swahili word. It means heart of the nation. And I'm also the director of the Moyo Pan-African Solidarity Center. We're based in Accra, Ghana, and in London in the UK. First of all, I bring you warm revolutionary greetings from Moyo. We are at crossroads in our history as a people, and we need to recognize that. In the earlier discussion, there was what some people think, call a lot of emotion shown. But you see, we only show that emotion precisely because we do not know our history. Because if we knew our history and understood it, we would understand that the murder of Lumumba and the overthrow of Nkrumah and the killing of the rest of our revolutionary forces are a logistical pattern. Okay. Oops, that's it. Okay. They are a logical pattern in the war of imperialism against our people. And precisely because you and I do not understand our history, and I'm referring primarily to all of us who are Africans, of African origin. So we get so upset whenever we see things like this. Instead of going to study our history and understand the trajectory and the patterns of imperialism, of the slavery, of colonialism, and today of neo-colonialism, which is the new colonialism. If we understood that, we would not get so upset. But we would arm ourselves and be prepared and organize ourselves. But how many of us who were expressing so much anger and hurt today, how many of us are in organizations? How many of us? Very few. We think that coming to conferences like this is where we come to talk, to get angry, to get upset. How many of us are in organizations? If you are not in an organization, if you are not in a fighting organization, then you are part of the problem. You are part of the problem. And you are part of the problem precisely because you are not part of the solution.
Oh, bravo!
Individualism is the cancer that affects us as Africans. Individualism is what stops us from winning and defeating imperialism and neocolonialism and white supremacy. All of it joined together. Individualism. So when I hear all this talk, I get so bored and fed up because it's just hot talk. And, maybe you come once in 2 years to come and, let off your steam and your pressure. You have to start getting serious now. I didn't mean to go straight into it, but just as a commentary to the last session, But first of all, let me do something. I wasn't here in the morning when we started, so I don't know how we started. But I don't know if we opened our session of our day with libation, because that is what we do as Africans. And sometimes we get so westernized, even we ourselves become so westernized that we think some things are not proper anymore. But this is why we lose our struggle, because we are being separated from ourselves. We are being turned into something that we are not. I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm going too fast for the translators. Forgive me. When you are agitated, that's what happens. So let me start. And I should have started that before launching into the attack on emotions, by first speaking libation, because usually we would pour libation, but I can't do that now, so I want to speak libation and call on the memories of our ancestors, freedom fighters. One of them in whose memory we are here today, Patrice Emery Lumumba. I want to speak libation to the name of another freedom fighter, Thomas Sankara. I want to speak libation and call on the name, because we have male ancestors and we have female ancestors who fought equally in our battle for liberation. I want to call on the name of Mbuya Nehanda from Zimbabwe. She was a spiritual leader and she organized our people. I want to call the name of Nani of the Maroons from Jamaica, who organized the freedom of our people. I want to call the name of Nanaya Santewa, who stood up when the men would not fight and decided to face the British down. I call on the name of Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, in whose memory I have come here today to share with you. Our history is rich and it's full of fighters, freedom fighters for our liberation. Our history is not the history of a weak people or the history of a defeated people. It's the history of a powerful people who have stood up to fight. I want to speak libation to the name of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, another freedom fighter who stood up for us. There are so many, many more names. Another person is Queen Nzinga from Angola, another warrior queen. Our history is full of our ancestors. And the challenge for you and I today is, how will we be remembered? Not for us to come and let off air about what imperialists did to Lumumba, because the imperialists will continue to act in their own self-interest. When will Africans start to act in their own self-interest? And you know that as we have freedom fighter leaders, we also have traitors, treacherous leaders. And the most popular one today is called Barack Obama. Yeah. Some people are not happy because some of you thought that was our savior and our Messiah. But that's where you continue to go wrong, because we refuse to see the enemy for who he really is. And the enemy is not just about color. Sometimes the enemy looks just like us. And you must understand this, that apart from the question of race, and that is a very obvious question that we must not run away from, there is also the more fundamental question of class interests. And as a woman, there is also the fundamental question of gender oppression. So, our battles are multiple. Three key elements of our struggle as a people. And if we do not understand the issues and the ingredients of that struggle, we will lose our way and we become confused. And when we see them attacking Libya, you hear Africans say, oh yes, he stayed there for too long. He was a dictator. So it's good that they've taken over. whatever it's called. All the same. Like the French would say, c'est la même chose. All the same. And you must understand that. When you hear imperialism saying one thing, if an imperialist tells you good morning, you know that it's afternoon or even evening or midnight. You must always look behind the surface. But let me attempt to get back onto the trajectory of my presentation. But this is can I just ask the chairperson and the moderators to subtract all the time for clapping? That's not my time. They need to subtract it from the audience. So I still have my time. So, the discourse today is prospects and challenges of the Pan-African Renaissance. What are we talking about? You know, when I saw the topic of Renaissance, you know, it sounds very cultural, you know, very artistic, you know. And I'm not an artistic person. You know, I'm a professional agitator. I'm a revolutionary. So I thought to myself, I said, oh my God, you know, they're going to lose me now. I don't know, Renaissance, you know. And I certainly don't speak any French. But, you know, I got to understand that, you know, it's at the end of the day, what we are saying, you see, so this is in nice English, challenges and prospects of Pan-African Renaissance. What we're saying in simple English is prospects of the African Revolution. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And a lot of people, when they hear the word revolution, they become quite scared. Oh my God, so much blood. Look at how much blood imperialism shed in Libya. Look at how much blood imperialism shed in Ivory Coast. Look at how much blood we shed in Sierra Leone and Liberia on behalf of imperialism. That is blood. That's blood. Look at the Congo. I couldn't sit in for the discussion on the Congo. I couldn't sit in, and Comrade also said, because it's too painful to even listen to the discussion on the Congo. 5 million people dead in the Congo. 5 million, not 500, not 5,000. Do you see black people crying? Oh no. But when Princess Diana dies, we're weeping because our sisters died. When September 11, you know, happened, we were having memorial services all over the continent. And I'm not saying that we mustn't have these things, but you must weep for yourself before you weep for other people. And that is something that you and I don't know how to do, because we believe imperialism's agenda that the African has no human value, but the white person has human value. As soon as the first farmer, the first white farmer, was killed in Zimbabwe, all hell broke loose because one white man had died. Then they realized that, oh my God, Mugabe is a terrible person. Excuse me. Just a few years or months ago, the Queen had given him a knighthood. If you don't know, he's a knight. Yeah, his name is Sir Robert Mugabe. He used to be your friend. But when he fell out with his white masters, then he became your enemy. Isn't that interesting, Africans?
No.
But some of us remain staunchly behind Mugabe. Not because of Mugabe himself, but because of the land. That is our land. Our land, African land, that was taken over by settlers. And they took it with our blood. And now they have the nerve to ask us to pay them for it. We'll pay you for it in other ways. We have to understand the politics. Our politics. Most of us get our understanding of politics from the media. We've got to do some reading. How many of us talking about the Congo today have read this book? Challenge of the Congo by Osadefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. If you want to know anything about the Congo, get this book. Read this book. Then you will know Lumumba. I didn't know him. I never met him. I wasn't born when they killed him. It is Lumumba's ideas, his vision, that continues to remain relevant to us as Africans. That is the power of Lumumba. Yeah. That is the power of Nkrumah. So it's not about the man. His son may feel an emotional connection, has an emotional connection, because that is his dad. But Lumumba is not my dad. He's a freedom fighter for me. That is his essence. And he represents all the things I'm looking for in my life. All the things that we want to bequeath to our people. That is the power of Lumumba. That is the power of Nkrumah. That they represent our outstanding hunger for African liberation. That they dared to show us that you can fight imperialism. And of course, it seems as if whenever anybody stands up to fight imperialism, they take us out. They kill us. Then we've got to learn that lesson and see how we organize and counter-organize against that. To stop getting angry that they killed him. They're acting in their own self-interest. Where were we? Did we organize enough to, counter that? Even till today. By the way, the moderator, asked me a question. What are you? Right now, as we speak, our organization, we're also putting together a documentary on Nkrumah's life and the CIA coup of 1966. Because that is the one coup in the world by imperialism that affected not just Ghana, but the whole of the African continent and the whole race of black people, wherever we are. By one major strike, American imperialism, supported by the British and the French, were able to hijack our revolution and take us back 50 years back. That's what they did with the CIA coup of 1966. But how many of us have studied that? So we don't make the same mistakes again today. So that when the enemy comes, or when they bring a puppet like Obama and wave him in front of us, we'll say, no, you are a traitor. But what did we do? We rose up in celebration. There is a black man in the white people's house. Black man in the white people's house. We were so happy to have a black face in the White House. Shame on us. Shame. And I know I'm going to be upsetting some of you, but that's all right. Normally, before I start, I always apologize in advance. So when I apologize, and I offend you, we'll even each other out, So let me apologize in advance, but I will be doing a lot of offending today, all right? So, I've spoken about the context of this discussion we're having. So for me, it's not just an ordinary discussion on the challenges and the prospects. It's the context of the discussion, of our times. One of the things that Nkrumah said was that we're going to have a new colonialism. So there was slavery, there was colonialism proper, and then we felt that we had fought the struggles and driven, the Europeans off our lands. But Nkrumah had the vision to see that there would be a new colonialism, which he called neo-colonialism. Now that is it's the most challenging battle that we face today as Africans in the 21st century. Therefore, one of the first things we must do is, what is our interest? What's our understanding of neocolonialism? Okay? And for me, it is within this context that I stand before you today to discuss this contextualization and issues of African liberation, because that's the bottom line. People were asking us, oh, we should be having this meeting in Africa, we should be doing this. Look, we can even go and have a meeting on the moon if we're there. Wherever you are, organize! Stop moaning. If you want to go to Africa and have a meeting, let's get on the plane and go home. And that's true. Ultimately, Africa is the main theater of struggle, because that is our homeland. All of us, and when we talk about us Africans, we're not talking about those of us that come from Nigeria, Gambia, Congo. We are talking about Africans in America, Africans in Europe, Africans in South America. People we call Brazilians, people we call African Americans, Black Brits, Africans all over the world. Because globalization, they globalized us before they even developed the concept of economic globalization. We as Africans, indeed like us, we are a global people. And we need to understand that clearly, that we are a global people. And so we must use all of our resources, whether they are human, financial, material, spiritual, mental, cultural, political, economic, all of our resources must be mobilized in the course of the African Revolution. So we need to be very clear about that. Because one of our weaknesses as a people is this thing that people refer to as tribalism. I don't call it that because this is what Europeans like. You know, when they meet, you say, oh, hello. And you say, where are you from? So, oh, I'm from Nigeria. Oh, which tribe are you from? I said, which tribe are you from? So they say, oh, I'm not from any tribe. We don't have tribes. I say, really? So you don't have a tribe, but I have one because you gave me one. And if we look at our nationalities, our nations, whether they're just the Yoruba, they are much more in population and geography, than a lot of the European countries we have today. But you hear Africans raising up the tribe, and from this tribe, and from that tribe. What nonsense. Who cares where you're from? Nobody. When imperialism comes to attack you, it's not because of where you come from, it's because of the resources in your land. The earlier you understand that, the better for you. So in Nigeria, for example, there's an agitation now. We must split up. We must split up. If we split up, our bourgeoisie, our elites will also split with us and continue to oppress us in our smaller nations. The other weapon that imperialism uses, which is a challenge for a Pan-African renaissance, there is religion. Some of us, with all our radical rhetorics, it's shocking. We are still deeply Christian, deeply Muslim, deeply this, deeply everything but African. You see, the clapping has gone down because there's a lot of injection in the room. And we can't understand as long as you continue to see and to understand God and the Creator through the lenses of another race, you will never know freedom in your life. Never. Religion is a cultural understanding of the spiritual. That's why Indians are Buddhist and these Jews are that and this and that. It's just an expression, an attempt to understand, the supernatural. So when we as Africans continue the denigration, you hear Africans say, oh, that's fetish. Like some people, when they see the cowries, oh, that's fetish. Do you know what it is? This is where the problem is here, in the head. In the head. And if we don't fix that problem in the head and in the mind, we ain't going nowhere. You see, the Chinese are coming to Africa, right? Or they're already there. They're going to bring their own God, Confucius, whatever it is they practice. And you'll see Africans there, worshiping. There must be a cultural revolution also. If there is no cultural revolution, our political revolution will not succeed. It will be hijacked and defeated. Because while we've done half of it here in the mind, because there's here and then there's here. That's why there's so many of us in church. If you go to Africa, my God, when some of the big churches have their congregation, 10,000 people at one service. Well, I can't even talk about, because when they have their revivals in Nigeria, do you know there's no space for them in the city? They have to give them space outside. 2 million people turn up, looking for redemption, looking for the Messiah. But we have to understand that because the state has failed them, society has failed them, only Jesus has not failed them. And the reason why that hasn't happened is that they're most unlikely to meet him. thing. And listen, I don't mean to upset any of the Christians here. I come from a Christian home, a background, we're serious Catholics. My mom has got her big shrine in our house, all right? So I know what I'm talking about. But in coming into revolutionary consciousness, you begin to ask yourself questions. You begin to free your mind. If we want to get free, because there's some of us who don't want to get free, I must tell you that. There are a lot of, they want to be a bit more comfortable. They want to have access to the same privileges that white people have. Not understanding that Europeans had to steal our resources and murder our people before accessing those privileges. So, for those Africans who want the same privileges, I always advise them to go and look for a brand new race of people that they can exploit, a brand new territory somewhere that they can exploit in order to have those resources. Because some of us want orange juice without oranges. We want freedom without struggle. That's what some of us want. That's why we wait for the Messiah. Because you see, the Messiah is going to bring it, you see. We'll be folding our arms like this, and the Messiah will bring it right up to us. Say, here you go, good people. You deserve it. You're deceiving yourselves. And if we're not careful, in the next 30, 40, and 50 years, our children will come again, whether we assemble in London, in Lagos, in Accra, in wherever, and have the same discussion all over again. Unlike the former time of Pan-African struggle, where the Nkrumahs and the rest of them had these, gatherings, and they made serious agreements and discussions, but because they were already in organizations, because they were already organizing, they had the sense, they had the capacity, rather, to go back. When we finish discussing today, what's going to happen? But we'll have that discussion at the end of, today. Now, the other thing we need to understand is that today, as we speak, I said we stand at crossroads. We are experiencing violent attacks by neocolonialism against us. And, people in this room, you've got to make the effort yourself to learn, to go and research and find out what is this thing called neocolonialism? What is it? And then to, examine our lives and how we experience our lives today. Zimbabwe. That was a situation where they attempted to go back and occupy, the land. I'm not personally, I don't hold up Mugabe as, an angel, because Mugabe, before that, like I said, he was a knight, and he implemented the structural adjustment programs, which we fought against as student union leaders, all over the African continent. But when it came to the question of the land, a people who have no land, have no roots, have no means of production, we have to defend our right to that land and to be clear about it. And that's the other thing, that those who are in NGOs, they're not able to speak like this, to speak up because of this question of funding. That's another challenge of a Pan-African Renaissance. Because it's only Europeans who are revolutionaries themselves that may be sympathetic and be able to back our system. But the African revolution must be led by Africans who are fearless, by Africans who have no ties to the system. You have to understand that. So all this noise we make, oh, don't you do this? What about you? Look in the mirror. What are you doing? How are you participating? We saw what happened in Ivory Coast, how the French went in so blatantly to take out, Gbagbo. Gbagbo is no friend of ours, or no friend of mine, but that was an attack on us as a people. When I saw the pictures, when they captured him, and I saw the pictures, I felt humiliated personally as an African. Revolutionaries and organizers, we are in trouble. It means that we have not done our work the way it needs to be done to raise the consciousness of our people So they understand and are able to analyze issues. Sierra Leone, the fight ultimately was about the resources in the land and who would access those resources on behalf of imperialism. And you see how Tony Liar Blair quickly went there, smiling with his fake smile and his lying tongue, to go and say he's assisting them. Diamonds! Diamonds! Liberia. Rubber. Tire. If you don't have any resources in your land, if you like kill everybody and all your dogs and your cats and your animals, nobody ain't coming there. Nobody ain't coming there. So, what is a renaissance? What do we mean by renaissance? It's this coming back of our consciousness, of our organization, of our mobilization for our freedom and our dignity as a people. That's what a Pan-African Renaissance is about. Why do we need a renaissance? It's probably obvious. Because, you know, look at a criminal like Tony Blair. He says Africa is a scar on the wall. A criminal! Tell it, Sarkozy, he isn't even, he's worse. He's a criminal clown. Or a clowning criminal. You see, Sarkozy, I don't think too many people take him seriously, maybe except his wife. I don't even think she takes him seriously. You see? So he's a clown, but he's a dangerous clown, still a clown. So when these kind of clowns begin to say these things, and you see African leaders, you know, like puppets, you know, when they're talking to European leaders, they stand like this. If any of us went to see them, they'll be like this. The need for a renaissance is not about reformism, because that's what a lot of us want. We want to reform things. We want to fix things. We talk about the economic index. You know, it's developing. It's getting better. We want revolution, and I'll tell you what revolution is. It's about transformation. That's all revolution means. A fundamental change. That's all revolution means. A fundamental change. There has been no revolution in Libya. Anybody who thinks there's been a revolution in Libya, you need to sleep, go to sleep, and then wake up again tomorrow. What has happened in Libya is a hijacking that will take them 50 years back, if not 100, to when Gaddafi, of course Gaddafi had his faults. Who doesn't? But he had vision. And he was putting it into practice. He was going to try and, you know, facilitate an all-African currency and tie the currency to the gold dinar. When Saddam tried to do the same thing, to change all of Iraq's money into euros, you know, because now all of us use dollars, you know, they had to take him out. They're very clear about these things. The only people that are not clear are, guess who? Africans. So, what kind of renaissance? We have the AU, the African Union. It's such a disgrace. But in a way, I'm pleased at what has happened, because it has exposed the African Union for what it really is, a new colonial entity. See, when their master stood up to start to, you know when you're such a servant, you know, and such a passive one, when your master slaps you, if your master slaps you in front of, if privately, of course, you're obliged to, be quiet. But if your master slaps you publicly, you should do like, oh, why you slap, try and put up some small bluff, just for purposes of, they couldn't even do that. And the African Union that you have today is not what Osajefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was talking about. What we have today is, the African Union is an association of neo-colonial heads of state. That is what we have today. But Nkrumah, when he was speaking, he said, now is the time to make a concerted and sustained effort to achieve an all-African Union government, without which final victory of the African Revolution will be incomplete. He says, this is the challenge of the Congo. The thing about the Congo, and it keeps on coming back into our discourse, the Congo is a very central place to our destiny as Africans. When the Congo burns, we will burn. If it swims, we will swim. And if it sinks, we will sink. You know that Nkrumah was making an alliance with Lumumba. You know he had with Guinea and Mali, I think. They were going to add Lumumba. I think maybe they had already added, because they wanted to make Congo the headquarters of Panafricanism. That would be where the AU government, the central government will help. See, there's so much we don't know. And they make sure we don't know it. Let me digress for a minute. Look at this book. You see how old and wretched it looks? Look at it. I'll tell you the story. First of all, if you go to any bookshop, it will be most unlikely that you would see this. All of Nkrumah's books are out of circulation. But they're out of circulation for a purpose. So you don't come across it. So you don't read these things. You know where we saw this? We're doing a documentary, like I said, on Nkrumah's life. And by the way, can I just ask, that anybody who can support that in any way, information, material, resources, we really would appreciate that. I'll give out our contact details later. So we went to the Ministry of Information in Accra. And we said, we're asking for some other things. And they were clearing out their store, their basement store. And I saw some things piled up. And I'm a very inquisitive person. So I said, oh, Madam Pacho, what's that? They said, oh, some old useless books that we've had there for a long time. We're going to clear them out. I said, let me see. I almost fainted when I saw Nkrumah's classics. These things, they're like gold for us. But our people were going to throw them out. Look at the books. Do you know she was so disgusted when I asked for it? Because she couldn't imagine why. These are the original old copies, the first copies. And then I said, do you have more? She said, Mother, I'm giving you one. Just take it. You wanted to dash me. I said, no. I said, I'll buy them. She said, hey. I said, that means you have money. She went to bring the books. I couldn't, and she sold them for like nothing. Look, I had to calm myself down. I had to say, so that she doesn't see the reaction, And I bought all the books in that basement for absolutely nothing. But the point I'm trying to make to you is that this is a state of our minds. This is where we were. But if we were buying some European book or some of these other things, oh my God, she would know the price of it because of value. It's about value. What value do you give to yourself? What value do you give to your history? What value do you give to your struggle? Most of you don't give any value to your struggle or your freedom. That's why you only come to things like this now and again. You come to grace this place with your presence. And I'm talking about to the Africans, not talking to the Europeans. Precisely, but if it's church, every Sunday we're there. Or if it's mosque, unfailingly, every Friday. Let's get back. One of the things Nkrumah said was, seek ye first the political kingdom, and all other things will come unto you. Sometimes some people say, well, if you look back at what Nkrumah did, maybe he should have sought first the economic kingdom. That is half true, in the sense that your politics is what defines your economics. So if your politics is not right, your economics will never be right. So we need to have that clarity. What is our politics? Now, if you look today in the modern world, our discussion now is democracy, good governance, all this. No! Liberation! Freedom! Means of production. Means of production. Who produces? How is the wealth shared? These are the issues. And that's why for some people they call it a class analysis. Absolutely. That's how this, somebody has been there for 42 years. Elizabeth, Queen of England, she's been there for how many years? Have you complained about it? They haven't given you permission to complain yet, so you won't complain. But you're complaining about Gaddafi. Let me begin to round up. I want to put things clear, and I hope we'll have time to exchange in the question and answer session. Challenges and prospects. What are the challenges and prospects of a Pan-African Renaissance? I'll talk about challenges and I'll talk about, the prospects, side by side. The main challenge, I think, is neo-colonialism. The new colonialism. White power in a black face. That's what neo-colonialism is now. White power in a black face. Obama, that's a picture, a classic picture of neo-colonialism. Goodluck Jonathan in Nigeria, classic picture of neo-colonialism. And the vast majority of the African leaders on the continent, the vast majority of them, those are classic pictures of neo-colonialism. Because what they support is still imperialist institutions' agendas, but they have a black face. So for example, when tomorrow the president of Nigeria maybe comes from the part of Nigeria I come from, you suddenly hear that I've become quiet. Affiong has become very quiet. Because the president is from her part of the country. And she can't be seen to be attacking him because she just might get a job tomorrow. And that's the other thing about us, you and I. We ourselves are traitors because our jobs, our stomachs define our politics. So we have to begin to rebuild independent institutions. And that starts with even basic things like our media. You must have your own people's media. The internet is available for that now. What is your challenge? What is your own skill? Where is your gift? Because like Marcus Garvey said, it says, rise up, you mighty race, for you can accomplish whatever you will. And that is true. Neocolonialism, that's a major challenge in all its, masks. And that's the thing. Must learn to unmask and recognize neocolonialism wherever we meet it, even when we see it in ourselves. And let me talk about culture for 1 minute. A lot of the Africans today are dressed, in suits and in European clothes. Now, on the one hand, somebody may say, well, that's a bit superficial. It is and it's not. If a blind person comes into a room, they need to know that there's an African in the room by how you look and dress and are. That is something, because it's about hair. For us as women, I'm sorry to say, it's also about our hair, because that's a major difference we have, with the men. Well, that's if they're not men who wear jerry curls. That's just an atrocity, but that's another thing. We have to challenge ourselves. These are difficult questions and difficult issues for us. And I'm happy to have a meeting, by ourselves. But there are many things we have to take on, to read our internal being of things before we're able to have the conviction to deal with the system itself. So the prospect is mobilizing and organizing ourselves in the movement against neocolonialism, all forms of it. Whether it's in government, society, in our schools. Look at what do we study at school. For example, on the continent, we don't study our own history. We are experts in European history, but we know nothing about ourselves. So even though we know our neo-colonial governments won't change that, we've got to change that. Develop Saturday schools for the children. Ethnicism, tribalism is all the same thing. That's a major cancer that we suffer from. We've got to get rid of that. What's the alternative to that? Panafricanism. That's the alternative. But revolutionary Pan-Africanism. Because let me say this. There are a lot of people who call themselves Pan-Africanists and they're cultural nationalists and they're anti-racist. Like, a lot of people, a lot of blacks here, anti-racist. Are you anti-capitalist? Are you anti-imperialist? Most of you are not. You're anti-racist. You're very clear about that. But you're not anti-capitalist. You're not anti-imperialist. So what you only want is change it, from a white vessel and give me a black one and I'll be okay. That's all you're wanting, a change of skin color. You don't want to change the system. that produces your oppression. Whether it's black, white, green, blue, or brown, it's about the system. And you must understand that. And don't be fooled when you see a black person holding up the system. He's even more dangerous than a white person. And do you know why he's more dangerous than a white person? Because if I see a white person holding up an exploitative system against me, it's very easy for me. I'm able to know just why our colonial struggles were able to go so clearly. Because we could see the enemy. And we knew that this is not your land. What are you doing here? You need to carry yourselves back to Europe. But when they went and they got replaced by their black versions, we were confused. That is neo-colonialism. And the black versions continue the exact system that their white counterparts left behind. You must understand that. Because if you allow that to confuse you, we will not be free. At the same time, I'm very clear also about white supremacy. And I make no apologies about that. That is the major cancer in the world today, white supremacy. We have to be clear also about that. But you also have to know that there are a lot of black people who facilitate and, support the engine of white supremacy. And of course, the solution to white supremacy is not black supremacy. Better be clear about that too. It's person supremacy, people supremacy. I've talked about religion, very uncomfortable issue. We have to deal with it, all of us at our own times, on our own level. I have this kind of passion and conviction because I come from the church, because in my past when I was younger, I was preaching some other messages, Do you understand what I'm saying, I'm from, the pulpit side of things, so I'm saying I have a lot of practice. Elitism. A lot of us, we see ourselves, we are the leaders, we are the elites. We are more educated than our not so educated ones. So we will go and liberate the mass. See, that's the difference between a lot of African leaders and somebody like Fidel Castro. Because they make sure that the vast majority of Cubans are conscious. So if you go to war with Cuba, each Cuban knows and understands what's happening. But if you go to war with any African country, half of them, if I like what happened in Libya, they'll welcome the oppressor. Because we don't have consciousness of our struggle. Our leaders just keep things to themselves and, monopolize everything. So we have to learn to build and to organize with critical mass. Critical mass. Wherever you are, whatever level, organize people, mobilize people, conscientize people. When some of us come to such meetings, we come with a conscious agenda to raise the consciousness level of our people, to elevate our people, to strengthen our people. I haven't come here to have a nice, friendly discussion. No! We are in a state of war. And you must understand that. Leadership. That's another challenge. It's also a prospect. Our history is also full of traitors and treacherous leaders and sellouts. But it's also full of revolutionary leadership. And we know their names, some of them. But the question is this: where will you be? On what side will you be? And leadership is not just being at the top. Leadership is the ability to find solutions to problems. So wherever you are, be a leader. Provide leadership. Understanding imperialism is a major challenge that we face. And identifying imperialist agents and agencies. Because you could have people, and that's the other thing about us, Africans. We're very, because our culture is very differential. Which is good in some things. But let's say I was from the African Union standing here today. If I was from the African Union, even if I was a secretary in the African Union and I came, I would be accorded a whole heap of respect than I am. Oh, we love it. We love officialdom, you know? And the reason why we love officialdom is we hope to become officialdom. You see? So we love it. But you know, that is exactly where the traitors are. You have to understand that. And to look behind and beyond things. So I'm saying understand imperialism and its agents. And its agencies. The United Nations. That's an agency of imperialism. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that's an armed agency of imperialism. You must understand this and check out our history with these agencies. And basically, it's like history is repeating itself. But history is repeating itself because you and I haven't bothered to study it. What's the way forward? Like Nkrumah said, and all other major revolutionaries, organization, organization, organization. Organization determines everything. Organization determines everything. Let's try it again. Organization determines everything. That's what organization does. We've got to be organized. You join an organization or you form an organization and you operate as an organization. Don't come, you know. Don't come complaining and moaning about how terrible racism is. Of course it's terrible. It's meant to be terrible. It's like complaining about how sweet sugar is. Come on now. If sugar was bitter, would that be sugar? Understand this. And I leave you the final word. That each generation, I think, is this Fanon? Each generation must identify its mission and either fulfill it or betray it. My sisters and my brothers, what will you do? Good afternoon.
So, finally, ladies in the house, is it? That's true. Ich denke, wir können davon ausgehen, dass die angekündigte Grundsatzrede von Frau Traoré nicht entfallen ist, weil wir jetzt einer solchen beigewohnt haben. Herzlichen Dank. Affiong, Affiong.